All right, ladies and gentlemen and graphic designers, we're going to continue on with Photoshop lesson 4. So we're going to select the lettuce with the marquee tool and the magic wand. Okay, so let's do this. Let's bring this thing over. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on the lettuce. This is in the way. I'm going to get this out of the way. And so I'm going to grab the marquee tool and I'm going to do this. Now, let's watch what happens when I try to move the lettuce. It moves the whole thing, which is kind of weird. So here's what's happening. We need to come over here to layers, and this thing is a smart object. We placed it as a TIFF, and so it basically says, hey, there's a this is connected to a picture, and I don't want to mess with it. So what we're going to say is, no, we're going to just put this inside. So Photoshop, and we're not going to mess with it. So look, so we're going to get rid of all the eyeballs everywhere else. Okay, so we have the picture and then just the blank background. And what we're going to do is we're going to go down here to merge just the visible ones. And so it's going to combine those into one thing. And it's locked. We're going to get rid of the lock. And so now when I move the selection, you can see I can move the lettuce. Now the problem is all the white stuff goes with it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use multiple tools. We're going to go to the magic wand tool, which we're familiar with. But instead of using it to select, we're going to use it to deselect. So I'm going to press the Alt key. I'm going to click on the white. And so now I've gotten rid of all the white, and I can move just the lettuce. And so we're going to go Layer, New, via Copy. And we're going to make that layer called, let's go to Layers. We're going to name it Multi-Tool Selection. Okay, call that multi-tool. Let's go to the PowerPoint and see what's happening in the PowerPoint. Okay, so write this down. And we already did this. Oh, we forgot to refine the edge. We'll play around with that a little bit. Okay, so let's go back to Photoshop. Okay, so one thing we can do, by the way, is we selected this thing and now it's deselected. We want to select it again. And so let's do this. Let's go, if we press the Control key on the keyboard and we click on the picture, it automatically selects everything in that layer, so that's super handy. And so let's do this. Let's go select and let's refine the edge. And what we want to do is we're going to feather that edge a little bit. So we're going to grab feather, and you can see that it kind of fuzzes the edge. We'll just fuzz it just a little bit, slightly. And sometimes it doesn't really look great on the lettuce, but sometimes on, like, if you're selecting hair or something like fuzzy like that, it's nice. But I wanted to show you how to do it. Okay, and so now we have this thing selected, and we're going to move it over to where it goes. Nope, it's not selected anymore. Oh, there we go. We're going to move it where it goes up here in the corner. Okay, and so by the way, write this down. You can put a selection around every object on a layer by holding the Control key and clicking on the layer's image. That's super helpful. All right, so let's select the olive bulb and the logo with the elliptical marquee tool. Write everything down on here. And so on the olive bowl, so since that is a ellipse, we're going to use the elliptical marquee tool. And so you click and drag, and you can hit the space bar to move it around. If you hit the Alt key, it goes from the center out. And so we're going to go into the center, and then we're going to drag. And we get this thing. It's pretty good. Okay, so we have that selection. Let's see what it wants us to do. Okay, so we already did that. Okay, so here's some information. So hitting the arrow key will move the selection 1 pixel. Pressing shift and hitting the arrow key will nudge at 10 pixels. So you can move the selection around. So let's try that. Okay, so if I use the arrow key, you can see that I can move the selection around, and that's pretty helpful. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go Layer, New, via Copy. Oh, I must be on the wrong layer, so let's go to Layers. Yeah, we want to go right there, and let's try it again. Layer, New, via Copy, and if I double click on the hand, now I can, oh, I lost my selection. So let's name the selection. And we're gonna name that elliptical. Okay, and so we're gonna press Control, and we're gonna click on this to select it again, and we're gonna go to the Move tool, and we're gonna move it where it goes over here. Write this down. All right, so so choose image adjustments invert. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so back at Photoshop, so we make sure we have this thing selected. We're going to make an adjustment layer, and we're going to choose invert, and it makes it really weird and interesting, but changes the way it looks there. And again, the nice thing about that is that we go to layers. We didn't ruin any pixels. We just messing with that one thing, so we can go back to how it was if we want to. Okay, so we're going to move and duplicate easily. So write this down. So we're going to do the same thing with it. We're going to select a salad graphic, and we're going to duplicate it. Okay, so let's come back here. We're going to check out how to select from this. We looked at this, and now let's try it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we're on the selection here. We're going to look at this graphic. So we're going to zoom in on this thing. And since this is more of a circle, we're going to go back to our elliptical marquee tool, and we're going to find the center point, and we're going to click and drag, and we're going to hit Alt to drag from the center out, and then we're going to hit Shift to do a perfect circle. And you're going to use the space bar to move it, and let's see if we can get it. That looks pretty darn close. And again, we can use the, oh, that's pretty good. Again, we can use the arrow keys to nudge the selection around a little bit. Okay, so we got it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go Layer, New, via Copy, and we're going to double click on the hand, and we're going to move it up. And one of the things we can do is once we get it where we want, we can, we're on the Move tool, we can press Alt, and we can, if we press Alt, we can make a copy, and then we can press Control and T, and we can transform it and drag it a little bit bigger, and then we're going to go back to the Move tool, and we're going to hit Alt and drag, and again we're going to make a press Control and T and transform it, make it a little bit bigger, and then, by the way, we can make it bigger, but if we hold Shift, it constrains the proportions. And on this one, okay, so we're going to hit Enter to transform, and again we're going to, on this one, we're going to go to, we're going to invert that, not that, edit, undo. Okay, so the problem is we had too many things selected, so let's go to layers, and oh, it was all separate layers. I got to get these all on one layer. Okay, so let's see what I did. That stuff's on one layer, that's a layer, that's a layer. I need to get these all on one layer. So I'm going to turn off everything but these things. Okay, and so I'm going to merge these into one layer. I'm going to, by the way, I got to be sure that I like it, because I'm going to destroy pixels by doing this, but I'm okay with it. So I'm going to go to merge the visible layers. It's all in one layer, and then I can go to invert, and I can invert. What is going on with that? Let's undo that. Let's see if we can try it a different way. Well, invert doesn't appear to be working very well for this one, so we're just going to get rid of that and move on. All right, let's erasing pixels. Select an area of the scrap with a marquee tool and erase it with the eraser tool. So normally we don't do destructive editing, but yeah, sometimes you just need to erase stuff. So we're going to click on this layer, and you can see there's all kinds of stuff around here. So what we can do is we can let's select something with the marquee tool. So we'll select this area. You can go to the eraser and you can erase stuff. It'll only let you erase in there. The other thing that is handy with the eraser, sometimes this is actually does come in handy, you can change the brush size. So if we go to the eraser, we can go to like a bigger brush but make it fuzzy, and so you can kind of fuzz things out, which is sometimes nice to do. But you can, if you really want to do destructive editing, you can actually erase individual pixels in an area. Okay, so we haven't used the quick selection tool, so we're going to re-edit, we're going to reselect the caret with the quick selection tool. Write this down. Okay, so we're gonna go to the quick selection tool, and it selects things very similar to the magic wand, and you can go through and you can change the size and the hardness and so on and so forth to select how you want. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the caret again. We're going to go to make sure we're on the correct layer. Yeah, we're on that layer. We're going to zoom in and maybe out a little bit. If I hit Alt, it'll zoom out. Okay, so we're going to go to the quick selection tool, and it basically just selects things on color, and it seems like we got it. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to go layer new via copy, and we're going to call that quick select, if I can select it. Okay, and we got to select it again, so I'm going to press on Control and click on the image, select it, double click on the hand, and we're going to, oh, I think I turned off my old caret. We're going to turn some of this other stuff back on. Okay, and we're going to move that selection over here, and we're going to press Control and T and transform it. Oh, except we've got that thing, so we didn't want that. So let's hit Shift, and we're going to deselect this. Alt. Okay, yeah, Alt, deselect. Let's go. Oh, well, okay, let's try this again. Press Command, or probably Control, click on this. I guess I need to erase all this stuff. There we go. So when I click on it, I can select the caret, press Control T. Oh gosh, it's gonna hassle me. And we can move the caret where we want it. Okay, good. Okay, so let's create a drop shadow and save and crop the image. So we're going to add a style button and use a drop shadow. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to come over here, hit enter there. Okay, so what we can do is we can go here and we're going to go effect, and we're going to go drop shadow, and we figure out how far we want. So you can see it happening over here. The spread, we can adjust everything about the drop shadow, the size, like that, and which direction the sun is going to be shining. Okay, so we're going to do something like that, and we're going to make it a little bit less, dark, something like that. Okay, and so we're going to go like that and click OK, and then so we're going to go through all of these individual layers, and we're going to add the drop shadow to it, and it should use the same settings. And so we're going to add the drop shadow to all of these layers. Okay, and one thing, by the way, that you can do is if you press the, so here's the effect, right? So I can turn the effect on, so you can see on the pepper, I can turn the effect on and off. So there's the drop shadow effect. If I press Alt and then I click on it, I can drag it to everything else. So I can just Alt drag it onto all the layers, and so you can apply that exact same effect everywhere. And so where's the tomato? We didn't get it on the tomato for some reason. At any rate, so once you get it on all of the layers, we can move on. Okay, so now we're going to crop the image to just include just the advertisement. So what we're going to do is we might need to actually do some more erasing. So I'm going to go to the eraser tool, and I'm going to delete some of this stuff. We don't need it. It might be challenging, and we might, so actually what we might end up doing is just getting the dropper tool, selecting that color, and just painting over it, but we'll need a really large brush so we can paint over some of this stuff, and because it's on a different layer I don't have to worry about deleting some of my stuff. Okay, so we, oops, edit, undo that last bit. Okay, so something like that looks good. Alright, so we can go to the crop tool and we can select just the part that we want, hit the spacebar to move it, something like that looks good, and then hit enter, and we've cropped just the stuff that we want for our advertisement. Okay, so file types part 2. Saving your PSD as other file formats. You should work on your image as a PSD because it just has all the stuff that you want. So it saves all the layers and all that stuff. So if you were to save this as a TIFF or something, you might lose some of your layer information. So whenever we're working on something, it's a .psd. Okay, so when you're working on it, you want to save it as a PSD, work on it as a PSD. When you're sending a picture to your mom or putting it on the web, a PSD is not the best file format. Why? Well, because if they don't have Photoshop, they won't be able to open it. So if you're sending it to somebody, you probably want to save it as a JPEG or a PNG or a PDF, some format where they all have the program that will open it. Okay, write this down. JPEG is popular because it compresses well. So you take a big old file like your Photoshop document. If you save it as a JPEG, it compresses it. You lose some of the information and some of the quality, but sometimes that's okay and smaller is better. Okay, so whenever you lose information, that's called a lossy format because you lose some of the information. But you can adjust it. You can make the quality higher or lower. For web pages, you can save the image at 72 pixels per inch because most monitors don't display it. So that's as good as you need to when you're saving it for the web. Okay, so GIF is another popular format. You can animate it. So I'm sure you've seen animated GIFs online. A GIF is also lossy. You lose information and quality. PNG is another format that's good. It's portable graphics. And it's nice because there's transparency, so you can sometimes like a JPEG, everything, like there's no clear background, it always has to be white, whereas a PNG you can have a transparent background. PNG is also lossy usually. Okay, so if you're gonna send it to a printer, so let's say that you're gonna have somebody print this thing, well, you want or if you're gonna send it to you print it yourself, you want the image to be high quality. CMYK. So RGB is what monitors use. CMYK is what a printer will use. Okay, so here's a file format. It's TIFF. So this is a format that everybody can use. Everybody can open a TIFF. You don't have to have a special program for it. It's lossless, so you don't lose any quality by saving it as a TIFF, but the image is really, really big. So normally you don't use a TIFF, but if you want to save all the good information of your document and send it to somebody, you can save it as a TIFF. Okay, so there's another format called PDF. So if you want to send it to somebody, everybody can open a PDF. And PDFs have a lot of flexibility. When you save it as a PDF, you can lock it to where they can't copy and so on and so forth. So you can, like if you're going to send it to a customer and you didn't think they were going to pay, you could send, but you wanted to see if they liked what you had so far, you could send it as a PDF and lock it. So a PDF is a good way to send it to a customer because they can open it, they don't have the full quality, and it's going to be locked. Okay, so save the image for the web, save it for printing, save it for sending to a client that you don't trust, and save the image with the best possible resolution in a lossless file type. So go ahead and do all those things. I'll just give you a hint. Well, actually, let me show you how to do it. So if you're going to save it for the web, you'd go File, Save for Web and Devices. Probably the most common picture format on the web is JPEG. So you could save it as a JPEG. and you can adjust the quality and all these sort of things, but make sure you go ahead and save that in your folder with your name on it. All right, the next one, what was the next one? The next one is save for 4-color printing. If you're going to save for 4-color printing, probably Photoshop. If I was going to print it, I just use it for Photoshop. But so file, let's go for, let's skip that for now. Okay, save the image for sending to a client you don't trust. You're going to save, that's going to be a PDF. So you're going to go File, Save As, and instead of a Photoshop document, you're going to save it as a, where is it at? PDF. So you're going to save it as a PDF and save that in your folder with your name on it in the correct folder. And what's next? Save the image with the best possible resolution. Okay, so if you want it in the best possible resolution that anybody can open, you'd go Save As, and you're going to want to save it as a TIFF. That's a lossless format. Really big file though, so oftentimes you won't use those, so save that way. All right, that's it.